What's happening?
Hey, Spencer. Not a lot. How about you?
Just doing a little show here. It's really weird
Right
not
on.
being able to do the opening because of your insane
Don't say my. Don't say my.
I've been, dude,
It has nothing to do with me.
I own the rights to that thing. I had the opening made 20 years ago.
It's all the big YT. It's all the big YT. But you know what's great about this kind of intro?
What?
It's very Joe Rogan-esque. He has no intro.
No, he does.
He just has the intro to the clips. The Joe Rogan experience.
No, he
And
has
that's
that. He has that on his podcast too. The real quick. He has that
he does?
spinning
Okay.
spinning thing, and yeah.
it. Yeah. Okay.
But I could do that. I can get that done.
Well, we're taking it even further.
I listen. I'm doing the show for so long with the same intro and the same, boring nonsense, and we have to figure out a way to change it up. Guys, I want to welcome you to the broadcast. Phone number is 888-659-3727. Our phone lines are open. If you're new to the show, Jesus Christ, I should iron my shirt. If you're new to the show and you don't know who we are, why we're here, I'm the founder of the American Hair Loss Association, author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss, founder of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. I've been a guy in this industry, well, initially on the outside of the field, looking in, just like all of you, trying to figure out a way to navigate through this insanely treacherous field. And around 30 years ago, when I was going through the initial throes of my hair loss, I realized pretty early on, at least in my day, it was hopeless. Rogaine wasn't even on the market yet. There were doctors who were compounding Lonitine tablets into topical concoctions, which is now, oral minoxidil. Mm-hmm. And I was putting that on my head, and I was doing, these, going to these really bizarre little, like almost backroom doctor's offices. One guy was a shrink. I think he was a shrink. And he created something called the Lewenberg formula. And he was on East 73rd Street, I think. I never forget, he told me, because I was using his product, when I spoke to him about potentially using finasteride, because I had just read an article in the New York Times about it, he told me that I'll start to grow breasts, I'll become very feminine, I'll never be able to have children, so on and so forth. So the reason I'm putting that out there in my opening is I've been through the mill like all of you guys. And I've been in the industry after I wrote my book and got on the radio. When I founded the American Hair Loss Association, the IHS, I started to get even more insight into the field. Besides, the entire field, for the most part, is a con. 99% of all products and services that claim to stop, prevent, or treat hair loss just don't work. Not much has changed in 30 years. But I was able to get insight into how these people think. The good, the bad, and the ugly of what really transpires in the industry. Mm-hmm. Not just a guy sitting here reading, and somehow, reading studies, interpreting them, regurgitating that information, taking information off the internet and trying to, create content for you guys. And that's why Joe's here. Joe's been in the trenches for the last 2 decades. Hair transplant repair patient. I mean, he was totally fucked up. You should have seen this guy. He came out of it. But he understands what this industry is about. So when you watch this broadcast, when you listen to us, we're not just 2 guys trying to hustle to make a living. Those days are long past for me. We're here to provide you with everything you need to know, or at least provide you with all the information you should have to make informed decisions about this insane industry. You could disagree with me. You could disagree with Joe. Well, I think more people disagree with me than Joe. But
I don't.
We have this is the agenda. The agenda is to provide you with the truth. Now, we only know the truth through our experiences, but our reality is much different than most people's because we're involved, or at least I am involved in every aspect of the field. Joe is now more involved in, dealing with a lot of different physicians. So he sees, behind the curtain in a way that he didn't see before when he was just working for specific clinics. So your mindset has evolved a lot, Joe.
Thanks, Spencer. I'm all grown up now.
You're a real boy now, Joe.
It's interesting when I think back on the first half of my career, almost actually quite literally the first half. There's I refer to the bubble that I was existing in as clinic culture, which is in HR circles they'll talk about office culture. With these things that go on that are unique to this office, and over this office, there may be some cliques that are unique to that one as well, but they're all the same. And that translates into clinic culture as well. And, what's interesting is, and I think it's important for viewers and listeners to understand this, that when you're talking to a clinic and they're throwing out these superlatives of their greatness compared to, insert name here of a clinic, or in my case, a procedure or an approach to surgical hair restoration. They're not looking at this so much from a point of view of their experience having done the same thing. They're not looking at this from a point of view where they have performed these other approaches to hair restoration and had a lot of success with it. What they're doing is they're reflecting their experience based on repair patients that have come to see them that have had, this type of experience at a clinic over here or clinic over there. They're not exposed to the positives of what other clinics might be doing. Classic example is when I was deeply in the FUT camp, and FUE, and I still say that this was warranted at the time, was the worst thing you could do. And for many years it was. Because a lot of so-called, you can't say a lot, but several of the so-called pioneers that are in this industry now, whose excrement doesn't stink and still proclaim themselves to be, God's gift to the industry. They were some of the worst offenders of, I'll use the word botching patients, which is popular right now.
Experimenting on patients, botching patients.
Experimentation.
Overcharging them for experiments. I mean, insanity.
Insanity. But over time, FUE in general became much better because there were some doctors that did put their heads down and did try to figure it out, and it made everything else better. So over time, I realized, to the point where in 2009, 2010, I could no longer justify, even though I was working for an FUT-only clinic, I could no longer justify dragging FUE through the mud. Up until then, I was deep in that clinic culture. And after that point, I was fighting the clinic culture that I was working within because it's like I just couldn't do it anymore. Too much evidence. But that's what you're experiencing when you are talking to a clinic and they say, oh, well, that method is terrible. Well, have you used that method? Is the question you should be asking. If so, how many times? And I think it goes to the point of challenging doctors on what they're telling you during your consultation. Now, obviously, you want to listen to what they're saying, because if they do put out great results on a consistent basis based on the priorities that you have deemed are important for yourself, then obviously they do have a pretty damn good idea of what they're doing and how it would apply to your case. But when you're coming in and asking about things that you've been learning about, you do need to question why they have a negative opinion, if they in fact do have a negative opinion about whatever you're asking. A lot of times it's quite legitimate. There's a lot of snake oil out there, a lot of bad approaches to hair restoration, but I think it's important for you to ask them why. If they can justify it, if they can break it down, if they can explain it to you, then the worst thing that can happen is you learn something.
And I also think a major red flag, and this is important, and I tell people this all the time, if a doctor speaks badly about another physician, specifically, in a manner, instead of just saying, well, you know what, I may have approached things differently, or, obviously if it's a real botch job, the physician has to be honest, but they don't have to go on and rant about these other physicians. What a reasonable physician would do is pick up the phone and say, look, I just saw one of your patients. This is a really bad situation. I'm going to do my best to help him. But, let me tell you what I see and what may have transpired. That doesn't happen. You know what happens? At best, I get a phone call. And I'll get a phone call about doctors I don't even work with. So I have to go out there. The people call me, and let's just say it's some person at one of the chain clinics that did a bad job. I'm supposed to go out there and put it on the show. But don't tell anybody that I told you. I want you to go out there and destroy this doctor's name, and this clinic's name, but don't tell anybody that I told you.
Leave my name out of it.
Leave my name out of it. And then you got the doctors, another major red flag, that will just badmouth their competitors in front of you. And also make a patient feel bad about their choice. Even if they didn't feel bad before. Even if they just came in for maybe a second procedure and they're like, I saw you online and I'm interested. And the stories that I hear, man, of guys their lives are almost shattered, at least for a few days, by a physician basically saying, I don't know how you're walking around with that.
Yeah.
So these are all red flags. And I think people need to watch out for that. And also, I think a major red flag is when a physician, you don't want to have a personal relationship with any of these guys. I think that is a bad idea. And physicians who cross the line into personal relationships with their patients is a bad sign. Very few doctors,
100%.
Very few real physicians in any specialty, but in this specialty, will do that. There's a handful that do, and they try to leverage them to, market their practice. I just got to tell you guys,
patient yesterday,
that's a red flag.
It's a red flag. I heard from a patient yesterday that said that a doctor he was going to that offered that it was giving him a discount without ever having asked for a discount, without ever having asked for any sort of favorable approach to the billing of his pending surgery. Would text him out of the blue and say, I don't think that you appreciate what I'm doing for you. Why aren't you online talking about me and how much you appreciate how I treat you?
It's a sick culture, man. I have to say,
it's sick.
A sick fucking culture. Guys, hold on. I'll take your phone calls. 888-659-3727. I went into our physicians group chat and I just basically said, look, guys, I've had it. I have had it with you guys. You complain to me behind the scenes and you won't do shit to not only help the cause, but to help yourselves. They're just sitting there in a sinking ship with a Dixie cup you know? And they're just, bailing water out, bailing water out, bailing water out as it's flooding in. It's almost a tsunami. I'm like, listen, guys, this is all you have to do. 3 easy steps, and everything changes. And then I get somebody who sends me a link to some bullshit that's happening in Virginia, and I get somebody who sends me a link to something else, and somebody's like, I'm in. We're going to train doctors. Jesus Christ. You don't need to do any of that stuff. Just if you listen, share this content on all of your digital media, it'll make a huge dent. Crickets. And then I'll get a complaint next week.
Oh, yeah. Just don't mention my name.
Yeah.
When you publicly risk yourself legally to bring them down.
There's a doctor here in LA area, and he has it in his head, and I don't think it's a bad idea. He wants to bring less expensive hair transplants to the U.S. and find a way to, I guess, he'd end up making less money and find a way to make this happen, take care of his, malpractice insurance and pay his staff well. But instead of making, maybe $20,000 a day, he'll only make, $5,000 a day. And give patients a break.
Yeah.
And honestly, that may be something that's going to have to happen eventually to keep patients safe.
Makes sense. I want to just a little subject change. There's some chat going on in the chat room about the expulsion of a regular chat room member. That would be Rob Hellner. DB, I saw what you were saying, that you're thinking about leaving and not watching. That's fine. No one's keeping you here. The reason why I put Rob into a permanent timeout, just for those of you that weren't watching last week, I'd had it with his next caller please type of comments and other comments that he was making about the caller that had nothing to do with next caller please. They were insulting. And then when I called him out on it, or when Spencer said something to him about it, he decided to backtalk toward us. So I put him in a permanent ban. Now, is it actually permanent? I can't say that. I was thinking about maybe bringing him back next week. But for those of you that are really distraught over his removal, what am I supposed to do? It's no longer cute when someone is in the chat room that the caller has full access to, by the way, and he's saying, this guy's boring. When someone is pouring their heart out, sharing the trauma that they've been through, be it through regular hair loss like you and I deal with, or if it was some sort of negative outcome with surgery, I don't want to see any of you motherfuckers telling someone that when they're calling in, sharing their story, that they're boring. If you want to play that game, do not watch this show. We're here to help people. We're not here to make them feel like shit because they called in. I'm done with that. So if any of
you sound like my 10th
like
grade geometry teacher.
Go away. I'm not dealing with that anymore.
Well,
I've had too many people call, sharing themselves. It's anonymous, but it takes a lot of guts for people to call us sometimes. You can hear it in their voices. They're nervous. They've never spoken to anyone about what they're talking about before because it's such an emotional tear that they can't speak to anyone.
I was under the impression that you kicked him out because he keeps talking about my 5 head. But whatever. I appreciate it.
Well, that too. Too.
No, I'm just kidding, dude. Come on. I don't give it. Listen.
No one talks about this guy's 5 head except me.
Yes.
Okay?
Guys.
All right.
Phone number, 888-659-3727. Don't get too involved in the chat. Don't worry about the people in the chat. Everybody's fine. You're all grown men, for crying out loud. Rob Hellner will be just fine.
I have spoken.
Even that the fact that's an issue. It's like, come on, people. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello, Spencer. This is Oded from Israel. How are you?
Oh, hey, man. How are you? What's your name again? I always forget.
Hey,
Omer from Israel. How are you?
Good.
Roma.
What's going on?
How's it going?
Good. Good. I called you last year, I think, a few times, if you remember.
One of the few Israelis
actually,
who called the show, so yes.
Yeah. Actually, today's topic of the show is exactly what I'm calling about. A year ago, I did my first HD with Dr. Seti from Eugenics.
Okay.
It's, I can already see the results. So
Can I ask you a question?
actually,
Are you on a speakerphone?
yeah, should I remove it?
Yeah, because it's a little
Yes,
muffled.
please.
Hello?
Yeah.
There you are. Much
Is
better.
it better now?
Yes.
Great. So, as I said, a year ago, I did my first HD with Dr. Seti. So, obviously, I already see the results, and it's not exactly what I expected. I wouldn't say it's a botch, but I would really like your opinion, maybe how to analyze it and understand it in a better way, and maybe understand what I can do next in order to improve it. So I wouldn't say it a botch, okay, first of all. And second of all, every doctor I consulted with, he told me I would need at least 2 surgeries. So having that in mind, I know I should have another one, but, I expected at least some areas to be more fine than what they are. Just to mention, we did both the hairline, the frontal third, as well as the crown. Initially, he advised me to do like between 25 to 30 grafts for my surgery, but in the day of the surgery, he actually suggested to do also the temporal points, which we did additional like 1,300 grafts. So I ended up doing 4,300 grafts for my first HD. Now, I'm not sure if maybe I'm one of those patients that are a slow grower. I saw one of Dr. Feller's old videos that he had a patient that only after 18 months he saw like almost the final results, and still after 2 years some hair wasn't mature.
Let me interrupt you for a second. So tell me exactly what your issue is with the transplant. I know that you're not as happy. You don't think it's as it's not a home run. Let's put it that way.
Well, before he does, what level of hair loss were you experiencing on the Norwood scale? Where were you classified?
4 to 5.
Okay, but what did they say?
So, they didn't tell me like a specific grade.
Okay, it might be in some of your paperwork, but okay. So at least a 4, maybe a 5. Okay, all right. So what's the issue with the result?
So basically, some in the frontal third, some of the hair is not growing in very specific areas. I know, for example, that Dr. Bizanga, which I went physically and I met him face to face, he told me my density is 50 hairs per square centimeter, while Dr. Seti told me he implanted 15 hairs per square centimeter. So obviously, having this in mind, obviously it's not going to give me the I think enough density, but I, in my opinion, some of the hair grafts didn't survive, and I'm not sure. And some in some areas I had shock loss, not temporary, permanent shock loss, because in some areas I had hair before the transplant, which I don't have anymore. So, it makes, I won't say I have improvement, no doubt. If I wear a topic, I look amazing. Nobody could tell I had something. But, without topic, when I look, with a harsh light, not necessarily a harsh light, but, some hair sticks out, some hair directions are not so great, but it less bothers me than, the areas where you can see no hair, When you comb your hair backwards, you should have some support, from, the hair on the back support the hair in the front, when you take your hair back. So I don't have it. It looks a bit funny, and I don't know how to analyze it. If it's something was wrong maybe in the planning, maybe my physiology.
Well, let me get a clarification. You said that Dr. Bazenga measured your recipient the growth at 1.5 hairs per square centimeter or grafts per square centimeter. 1.5, 15.
Before I did any surgery, I came for Dr. Bizanga to Belgium for a consultation. He told me my average hair per square centimeter is 50 hair, 50.
50, and that is what, in the donor region?
In the donor region, yes.
Okay, and then you told me, and then you said another number, 1.5. Where was that?
Yes. So I spoke this week actually with Dr. Seti, to analyze the results, and he said that the density implanted in my head was 15 grafts per square centimeter. This is what he told me. So obviously, when you hear this number, obviously it's not going to be enough to cover, because I need at least 25, half of what I have. So obviously from the start, the planning is not correct. I'm not sure what was his...
Sorry for interrupting, but I'm trying to figure out the math on that, because you said that you're about a 5. You said that there was work done in the temple points, the hairline, the mid-scalp, and the crown. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So straight off the bat, and you said that when you got there was 1,300 grafts added to the procedure in order to build out your temple points. Is that correct?
Yes, that was his suggestion. Yes.
Okay. Joe's like Rain Man when it comes to this stuff, by the way. I love watching him think.
So what you have here is you have a simple deficiency in the math. 1,300 grafts out of your total procedure were used for the temple point. So the area of loss of the hairline, the mid-scalp, vertex, and crown was addressed with only 3,000 grafts. So
correct.
It simply wasn't enough hair. That's what it sounds like to me. So I'm not.
Yes.
Like I wasn't there. I don't have photos. I don't know what the notes were. I don't know what the conversations were between you two. But it doesn't sound like it's a lack of growth just based on the numbers. It sounds like it's just a lack of numbers, where a second surgery to go in and add more density to work that was already done is a no-brainer. And if the idea was to address all of these areas in one shot, but not with an appropriate number of grafts, I would expect that someone would have said to you that this is not a one surgery deal, depending on what your expectations are, that at least 2 surgeries are necessary to meet your goals. Was that not discussed?
So when I went for him to a consultation before the surgery, I flew all the way to India for a consultation So he told me that I need, I think, 1,000, even 700 grafts for my crown, where all the doctors I consulted with, which was Dr. Fasson, Dr. Bizang, I went them physically. I met them, and I also had some online consultation with other doctors. Anyway, almost everybody told me I need at least 2,000 grafts for my crown, which Dr. Seti told me, no, 700, because this area, you have a small head, and this area is very small. This should be enough. And it wasn't enough. So it wasn't that a surprise for me, but, going forward, if he told me 700 is enough and it's not enough, how can I know that for the next surgery, he will suggest an X amount of grafts and it won't be enough. I don't want now. I'm, with graft deficiency. I want to manage my donor properly. I don't want to make any mistakes. So,
it makes perfect sense. I understand 100%. My question, my next question to you is: you said something earlier about you've lost some hair. You were saying it was from shock loss, but you haven't told us if you're taking medication to prevent further loss due to DHT.
Always.
You are?
Always.
Okay.
Yes. Always. Just one thing maybe to mention. Dr. Seti told me I'm a very slow grower, so he suggested to take oral minoxidil, which I started from, I think, the end of the 6 months, and I saw some growth. I think it helped. But, here in Israel, it's a bit difficult to get this drug. So I stopped, I think 2 months ago, and I think I see some how you say it, sorry. My hair
deteriorating.
looks bent,
Yeah, deterioration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and how long ago was your surgery?
13 and a half months.
Okay. All right. Well, again, and I apologize. I don't know all the details because I wasn't there, and I haven't talked to Dr. Seti about this, so I don't know what his thoughts are. But it just sounds like a simple issue of not enough grafts. Like every graft could have grown perfectly fine. It just wasn't enough. I find it hard to believe that there wasn't discussion about a second surgery. I'm not saying there wasn't. I'm just saying I would have expected. I would have expected there to be some sort of discussion of 2 surgeries. If you look at their body of work over the past 10 years, you really don't see a trend or a pattern of patients with these great results with graft numbers that are far below what other clinics would have put out. In fact, they tend to go on to the higher number of graft counts compared to most clinics, based on their galleries and and YouTube channel when they're showing the results. So I don't have an answer for you. I would ask him why he would feel that you can trust him on the numbers and what he feels may be the issue. He did tell you that you're a slow grower. He recommended oral minoxidil. You tried that. You saw a benefit. Now you're not taking it for 2 months. You're seeing some deterioration. I would highly encourage you to move heaven and earth to find more oral minoxidil to help you have the best result possible.
I'm not sure if Killian, the hair chemist, might be able to provide some information on that.
Yeah, I think he's in the chat room. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know who the hair chemist is?
Yeah. Killian.
Yeah. See if you can contact him and see if he can help you with your with sourcing some oral minoxidil.
I can do it. It's a bit difficult, but I can do it. I was actually advised to take it again, which I will. But going forward, I'm not sure whether to proceed with the same doctor or going with another approach. Now, I already asked Dr. Bizanga, which was my second choice, his opinion. He suggested to proceed with Dr. Sethi. Insisted still to hear his opinion, and I actually need to schedule an appointment. But basically, they want a higher, let's say, higher amount of fee, because they see it as my second procedure with him would be, how you call it, when they fix your previous
Repair?
hair transplant. I don't want to say bad hair transplant because it's not perfect, but it's not a boss.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, I want to say
I don't want to say any bad words, because I see improvements, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's not coming across as though you're saying anything inappropriate or derogatory about Dr. Sethi. But the reality is this is cosmetic surgery. And I think your story is important because you have done your research. You have been calling the program. You did do in-person consultations. And you were still disappointed with the results. And that happens a lot more than people like to talk about. Now, I think Joe's correct in his assessment, and from what you described, it does sound like, like when you're building a deck, you need enough wood to complete that deck, and it just doesn't seem like enough grafts were placed to get you where you wanted to go. Plus, you apparently suffered with some shock loss, so there's some diminishing issues there. You have less of your native hair, which actually may come back to some degree if you continue oral minoxidil, as long as you do well on it. I like the fact that Dr. Prasanga said stick with the original doctor. Dr. Prasanga is a class act. He really is. He could certainly have, if you went to some other guys, they may have tried to reel you in. He's a class act. But it doesn't mean that if you really would prefer to see Dr. Prasanga for your surgery, that you shouldn't make that decision. You could speak to him and say, look, if this is your choice now, your first choice, then go with your gut. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't have to go back to Dr. Sethi just because Dr. Prasanga agreed that that's the best thing for you to do, and, the fact that he was your original doctor. I don't normally tell people to jump around from doctor to doctor, but you're having consultations with some of the best. So I think either direction you go is going to be probably you're going to have a positive outcome.
I see. My concern mainly is the donor, what's left, because Dr. Bizanga initially told me I have like 5,000 grafts, maybe 6,000, maybe, and I already used the 4,300 grafts. So he said, okay, that wasn't smart, and so it's all about doctors' approach, because maybe doctors take some grafts outside of the donor safe zone. Sorry.
Well,
so
yes,
everybody is different, so you don't know who to believe to.
Well,
so it's very confusing.
I can tell you that you're right about that, and one of my biggest pet peeves in the new normal hair transplant surgery, even amongst the talented doctors, is that they've all made concessions, in my view, when they converted their practices to 100% FUE. And one of the major concessions that they've made, not all of them, but a lot of them, is that they're trying to get the same number of grafts that they would be able to get with a strip or a hybrid. And they say that they can. Now, physically, mechanically, they can. But it does put people in at least a long-term precarious position, in my view, where hair transplants may not last as long as far as like all of the hair that was moved. So Dr. Prasanga is probably looking at what he believed to be your safest donor zones. And that's how he made his graft assessment. Where Dr. Setti, who is younger, newer in the game, and has really, cut his teeth on FUE, maybe a little bit more aggressive in the donor zone. Now, Joe has a little bit of a closer relationship with these guys than I do. I mean, they're both accepted members of the IHRS. I'm talking about Dr. Setti and Dr. Bonzal. But I know that Joe has a little bit of a closer relationship and may understand his approach as far as the donor area a little bit better than me. What would you say about that, Joe? And guys, hold on. We'll take your call in a second.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is I'm still confused about this because I've not heard of him transplanting a lower number of grafts, much less recommending a lower number of grafts than the traditional competition. So I don't know what to say about it, honestly. I know that Dr. Setti is, when it comes to the donor area, he's very concerned about making sure that he's, not taking the groupings too close together, not leaving any sort of demarcation of density from one area to the next. He wants it to be, as smooth as possible for any sort of transition in the density due to the removal of grafts. As far as this case, I'm stumped. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe we're missing some information. I don't know. So I really don't have any sort of insight into why.
I think he seemed
why there'd be a disparity.
I think Caller's pretty clear. I mean, I think that they moved a lot of grafts. He probably put a lot of grafts in the temporal region. Which I understand the importance of building up temporal peaks, temporal points, but
that's my point. It's 4,300 grafts, but you can't count 4,300 grafts for the Norwood pattern because 1,300 grafts were used for temples or temple points, and that means most likely not just recreating the shape, but bringing the entirety of the temple region forward.
Right.
To balance out any sort of hairline lowering that was being done.
Actually, I had some temporal point, but he just enhanced it. It makes more full and a little bit more forward. It wasn't completely gone,
No, I understand that, but my point is the crown, the top, and the hairline were left to divide up 3,000 grafts between them. That's not a lot of hair, so that's why I'm kind of confused. You take the temple points away, then you still have 3,000 grafts that was used to address your Norwood pattern of hair loss, whatever that wound up being a 4 or a 5, and what based on what I'm hearing, it sounds more like you were probably a 4 because a 4 has an open crown. And an assessment for 700 to 2,000 grafts for a Norwood 4 would be appropriate for the crown region based on averages that I've seen over the years. And then you probably have some sort of bridge in the mid-scalp that may or may not have decent density, but then the rest was put into the interior mid-scalp and the hairline. So it's just not a lot of hair for those areas typically. And that's why I'm confused. That's why I don't have an answer for you. The
question is why he suggested it. As a top doctor, why he suggested, or maybe better approach was let's do the front first, make it perfect, then we proceed with the crown, for example.
Well, I agree with that 100%. But
prefer this approach,
When Dr. Setti told you that he placed at 15 grafts per square centimeter, did you ask him why he didn't go higher, or did you ask him why there were not more grafts taken from the donor area? And if you did, what was his answer?
I didn't ask him. Basically he said, send me some more pictures. And I admit, when I spoke with him, I had I had the haircut, but I didn't like it, so I cut my hair and let's say I had some accident, so it looked even worse than what it is. But it's not in the front area where I'm concerned. I have hair. It's not that dense, but I have hair. It's not completely bald, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a matter of the grafts not growing, the poor density, maybe both. I don't know. So this maybe the doctor has
Well,
to see me and
I can't say
evaluate.
there's any indication of bad growth because it's such a low number of grafts. He said that he told you he placed it at a low density, 15 grafts per square centimeter.
Yeah.
That's low. That's unusually low. Unless he was placing into existing hair, then that's different. If there's a bunch of hair in between the incisions, then that's a completely different ball game. But if you're bald and you go in and you place 15 grafts per square centimeter, it's like, why bother? That's my take on it. Why
Yeah.
bother? Because it's anyway, I mean that's just my gut feeling on the information you've shared. I highly encourage you to do two things: get in contact with hair chemists to get a refill on some, or get a source for some oral minoxidil. Get back in touch with Dr. Seti and ask him what the remedy is. Like, why did he take this approach, and what will be different this time around?
I see. And my last question: whether I choose Dr. Seti or another doctor for the next surgery, do you recommend maybe to since my donor is limited now after my first HD? Do you recommend
It was
maybe
limited
to,
before the first one. It's always
No,
it's
it was
limited,
limited.
period.
No,
Doesn't matter
because
doesn't matter
I-
how many surgeries you don't have or do have. It's limited.
Exactly, but especially after my first HD. So my question is maybe if I should insist of doing like a really small surgery, I don't know, like 600 grafts, for example, just to see if the hair grows properly, just not to lose, more graft, or I don't know if they don't grow well. So
I mean,
do
you
you think
you
this is,
can do that, but here's a suggestion. And I think that you need to. It's fine to get assessed. It's fine to get more consultations, but until you get on medication full time and see how well you do on oral minoxidil, you may take it for 6 months or 8 months and realize, holy cow, I grew back a lot of my native hair, and now the transplant really looks good. It's settled. It's at its full density. You're growing full terminal hair, and
Yeah,
you may not even need another surgery. That is a possibility. I know right now you think you definitely need it, but I have seen some incredible turnarounds with a lot of medication, whether it's dutasteride, finasteride. But I see a lot of regrowth now with guys who respond well to low-dose oral minoxidil. You may not need to. It's good to have the information, but I just wouldn't rush into having another surgery, especially if you can get away
How
with wearing
soon-
Topic.
Yes, but still, it bothers me. So I feel like I must do something, at least in the front, at least.
But wouldn't you?
How soon do you think I should wait? Taking oral minoxidil until I consider a second surgery.
Listen, you know how fast? How old are you, by the way?
38.
Okay. So at your age, time starts to go faster and faster. 6 months is going to fly by. Give it 6 months. Get on the drug. Give it 6 months. See how you respond.
Okay.
Now, again,
Okay.
I'm not telling you to take medication. You're already telling me that you were on it. So I'm not giving you advice.
Yeah,
I'm not giving
I
you
am, and I'm just
medical
I
advice.
just discontinued it for 2 months. Before that I took it for
Yeah.
6 months, and I think it helped. I think it helped.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of good things as far as significant regrowth for a lot of people. Like with any drug, I mean, this has been prescribed for a very long time. It just became kind of like in vogue again in the last 4 years. But there were doctors who were willing to prescribe this, decades ago. And anyone who's ever taken it, if they respond well and don't have adverse side effects, they grow a lot of hair. They grow hair that bushy your eyebrows, bushy your beards, scalp hair growth, you may be one of those people. So 6 months isn't that long of a time. And in this way,
Okay.
you might be able to reserve your donor for when you really need it.
Okay.
I mean,
Let me try it,
just
and
consider it.
I will call you maybe in a few months. So first of all, thank you very much for your time and your help and tips. I really appreciate you both. Thank you very much.
And you know what? I'm sorry
luck.
I'm sorry things didn't work out the way you thought they would. It doesn't mean that the end result won't be great. So just
Thank you.
hang in
Thank you.
there.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
bye-bye.
you. See you guys.
Bye.
Have a nice show.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727. I hate hearing that. I hate hearing the angst. I know the effort that it took.
Yeah.
He actually went to India for a consultation, which is unusual.
He did everything right.
He did everything right. And I think this is
It's
a
a valuable lesson.
valuable cautionary tale that you can do everything right and not be thrilled. Now, he's just disappointed. He made it clear that he doesn't feel botched or anything. He felt he should have more hair, it should look fuller, and that he thinks he had some permanent shock loss, which could reverse it with medication.
Yeah.
But this is reality. This is cosmetic surgery. That's why I bang my head against the wall with everybody. And guys, we'll take your calls in a second. You know, the shit that I still get online from these young guys, these 20-something-year-olds, and trust me, when I was 20-something, I thought I knew it all too. I mean, I learned pretty quickly because I got really entrenched in this industry, and I also had a unique perspective on life because I started, you know, earning money at a young age, and I kind of understood the way of the world. And I always felt that everyone was trying to rip me off, or, you know, you could, even physicians I couldn't really fully trust. I had a bad experience with a hernia operation when I was like 21 years old. And I mean, they didn't cut my balls off or anything, but so it wasn't that bad. But I just remember before the surgery, you know, I just trusted my GP or my internist, signed up with the general surgeon, met him. He's like, yep, that's a hernia. When do you want to sign up for surgery? I signed up for surgery. And I just remember they're putting me out. He bends over. He's got like a pack of 10-3 100s in his scrubs. Granted, this is like 1986 or something, but, you know, that wasn't a good sign. And he stunk of cigarettes. And it was a painful, I mean, it ended up fine, but I was in pain for a long time. I learned from that experience, you have to do your own due diligence. You cannot trust these people. And that goes for everything in life. Accountants, lawyers. I mean, lawyers, the shit that I have to actually do the work most of the time if I'm dealing with an attorney. Even contractual law. It's like, what about this clause? Don't you think we should add this? You're the lawyer.
Making the big bucks.
But anyway, I mean, this is a cautionary tale. And this is reality. This is cosmetic surgery. So when these young kids contact me and they're like, you don't know what you're doing. I had this one guy, he's like, looks like he's in his 30s or something, mid-30s. And I told him he was being naive. He's like, yeah, if, you know, he said something like, yeah, if I was the old guy with old ideas talking to the young buck, I would say you're naive as well. Some stupid thing like that. I'm like, dude, come on. Wait till you're 58 years old. You're going to look like shit, brother. Is that terrible to say? That's a very testosterone-driven comment.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Very. But I'm a man. That's what, you know, get my hackles up. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
Morty.
Morty!
You're holding on for a long time, brother. How are you?
Hey, Joe. Hey, Spencer.
Hey, what's happening?
Not much. Figured I'd give a call. It's been a little bit. Wanted to let you guys know that I'm alive and kicking. And I wanted to wish Graham a happy birthday because I think it's his birthday. It was yesterday.
I think it was
Graham,
yesterday. Happy birthday, Graham.
Yes.
I think I was the first
And,
person to wish him a happy birthday on Instagram.
Well, that's cool. And I just wanted to say that I'm really enjoying your social media content, Spencer. And same thing goes for you, Joe. Seeing a lot of good things there.
Well, I appreciate that. I wish more of the physicians in this field would take it seriously and share some of the content.
You sound down, my friend. Am I detecting something?
Well, I've had a had a bit of a rough week. Nothing to do with the hair. The hair's been good. Other personal things.
We only want to hear stuff about bad times with hair. We don't want to hear your personal stuff. Just if you're having bad times with your hair.
So what's going on, Morty?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Well,
What's going on?
so no, I mean, like I said, just I get a bit of a backache and dealing with it, which is kind of a pain in the ass, quite literally. But yeah, it's funny. Spence and I had some offline conversations about some of the emotional things associated with hair loss, and I've been calling the show off and on now. I think it's about 5 years at this point, and I know there's probably some callers that aren't familiar with my story, so I figured if you guys would like, I could rehash some of it so you guys can get a feel for what I went through. So.
Let me hold on. What time is it? Yeah, go ahead, Morty. Sure, of course.
Okay, cool. I mean, if that's cool. So yeah, I mean, I started losing my hair. I first started noticing hair loss when I was about 19 years old. So basically, fresh out of high school, heading into college, living on my own. Wanted to become. This was the 80s. I wanted to become a rock star, and I was trying to grow my hair out, and I hadn't really grown my hair out before in my life. And my guitar player, I was playing bass. My guitar player took a look at my hair, and he said, "You know something? You're losing your hair." And I said, "No way." And I generally had a bit of a high hairline, but never really noticed much. But the hair wasn't growing in all that thick.
How old? You were like, what, 11 when this happened?
19.
Okay, all right.
19. And the hair started going pretty quickly. And so I ended up having to give up my dream of being, an 80s rock star. If you guys know, the 80s, big hair was kind of a big deal back then.
Yes,
and
I'm older than you, brother.
Yeah. I remember having some pretty traumatic moments when I remember I was with my girl, and we're up real close, and she's trying to run her fingers through my hair, and there's hair's coming out in her hands.
Yeah,
So,
it's heavy. Listen,
that was
in the 80s, when I started to lose my hair, and when my brother, let him rest in peace, basically, I asked him, I said, "Does my hair look different?" He goes, "I think I see a little scalp." And then he goes on, lights a cigarette and does his thing, like it's nothing, And that just mortified me, man. And I had an insane amount of long hair. It was like down on my shoulders. It was majestic, brother.
Wow. Now that's even bigger loss than I went through.
It was a big loss. I was like, every woman, every girl in that point in my life, it was all about the hair. And you're talking about like 1986, 87.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not saying it's not as devastating now for young guys, but back then, man, it was, if you're able to grow your hair like that, you were a rock star. People thought you were a rock star.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, you think about people like Robert Plant or what the hell's his name now? David Lee Roth or any of these rock stars. They all, it was kind of de rigueur to have hair down to your shoulders, and not just hair down to your shoulders, but full hair. I mean, I remember this was now when I was with the band for about a year at this point. My guitar player ended up getting into another band who I roadied with. And they opened for a band called Warrant. I don't know if you guys remember Warrant.
Oh, I remember Warrant.
And I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were the height of it. Like, they had some serious locks, And I remember they had they were getting ready to, because the band that my friend's band was opening for them. And I remember going into because it was at this place in Connecticut, and they had a shared dressing room. And I remember taking a look, and these motherfuckers, they're back there, right, with their their whatever the hell are spandex pants, and they're in the mirror with fucking picks and cans of hairspray, standing this stuff up a good 2-3 inches off of their head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And little old me, bald and getting balder. Essentially,
I'm waiting for the hairspray to come back. Eventually, it will. It's kind of like how Trump grew into his hair as he aged. That's what's happening to me.
Yeah, I guess. Just stay away from the spray tan. That's the only thing, please.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think it's a spray tan. I think it's makeup.
Yeah,
maybe it is a spray tan. I don't know.
Maybe it is.
It's just wrong. But anyway, so I basically had to buzz the hair, and then I had to rock the buzz cut for the following 20, 30 years. Let me see. Yeah, but you see, 19. Yeah, so because I basically gave.
So essentially, you're saying that's when it all fell apart, and then you found us.
Well, I mean, I didn't find you guys till 5 years ago,
right?
But what I had to do was I had to make do and live my life with a not necessarily a shaved head. I'm Jewish. We don't shave our heads, but a buzz cut, a very, very tight buzz cut, and for the most part, I was okay that way. I was able to get through life that way. Did it affect me? Yeah, it did. It took the wind out of my sails. I remember seeing pictures. Whenever I'd see a picture of myself, you'd always look at the pictures of yourself and you'd say, "God damn it, that doesn't look right." And it's heartbreaking. It really was heartbreaking.
Well, that's where the panic, and your story it's common, brother. I mean, that's where the panic sets in. That's where people make so many mistakes, or they don't want to listen, or when I tell these kids, you might be able to be helped. I mean, this is the best time in history to be dealing with hair loss, but it doesn't mean that these treatments or that surgery is going to work for you. So there's no guarantee with any of this stuff. So yeah. You have a chance now, a fighting chance, if you make the right choices of not living your life as a bald man. But you're never going to be the same. Once you cross into this world, people,
you're stuck.
You're a different person. You're never the same. You can't get back to pre-hair loss. Doesn't happen.
Nope. And actually, it's funny that you should say that because one of the things that I was kind of hoping and praying for. Once there, because now I am probably about a year and 2 months from my second surgery, and the areas which I was a little bit concerned with, namely the donor area, just slightly above and slightly behind the ears, has thickened up a little bit. So I'm trying to grow it. I'm trying to grow it out. Still hoping and praying for that. Those long locks of yesteryear.
Yeah.
And it's What I'm noticing is it's getting longer, but it's taking its sweet time about it. Number one, and number two is that it looks. Well, I'm trying to remember because I remember what I looked like when I was growing it out. Because I never really grew it out completely because I have what we affectionately call Semitic hair.
Yeah.
So for us, it takes forever to grow. Number one. Number two is it grows wavy, so it doesn't drop.
Right.
Which means that hopefully, before I start collecting Social Security, I may have shoulder length hair. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you may look like Einstein, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the look that I'm rocking. I'm rocking a bit of the Einstein right now.
Now I'm at a point where I used to just be worried about covering my scalp in the back. Now I got to cover my scalp and cover the growths on my scalp as I'm getting older. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's happening, Morty. Shit's just changing.
That's the thing. The hair starts growing down your back instead of growing on top of your head. It just starts to migrate.
I mean, it's just one day you just look at yourself and you're like, I'm holding up. Yeah, everything's pretty good. And then you're just kind of like smacked in the face with reality. Like, look, this is it. What are you going to do?
Dude.
Time and tide stop for no man. Not even Brian Johnson, if you know who that is.
Yeah, really? He's working it, though.
I have to tell you, I felt I was a little knee jerk. I wrote something about, I did a remix about, he was talking about PRP on that CEO show. And I felt that was a little harsh because then I took a closer look at his content. He's a very thoughtful, like sincere, interesting person. You know, I actually kind of, after listening to him and listening to all the shit that he takes online, I kind of felt like a fondness towards the guy. Like, wait a second, he's legit. He's really trying to do this, and this could possibly change the world. It's not just for his own, self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it interesting.
Well, I mean, because I've been watching him myself for a couple of years, and he's doing a lot of really interesting things. He's dealing with skin and his exercise routine, his diet, his supplement stack.
I actually have a physician in New York. And I'm not going to say who he is, but he does unique imaging for cancer. And I know that he wants to get involved. He's shown me some stuff for hair. It would be interesting, and I'm going to try to maybe set this up, because that's one thing that Brian Johnson's not doing. He's not actually seeing exactly what's happening underneath his scalp with the treatments that he's using. And we may be able to make that happen for him. There's a new device that is that may actually be able to make that happen. So who knows? Maybe I'll have him on the show.
Yeah. That Brian Johnson on the show, that could be really cool. What I was going to say was...
Joe's yawning. He's like, fuck Brian Johnson.
No, I'm not yawning. It's just I saw a thing yesterday, day before, on it. I do follow him on Instagram, and an ad popped up that was his ad promoting some sort of broccoli and chicken dish that you can now get freeze-dried, sent to your home, that he eats every day. And it's like... Really?
Well, he's turning it into a business, man. What are you going to do?
Well, he's already a businessman.
I'm saying he's turning it into a business/man. Not that he's turning into a businessman. Actually, man. But
I'm so jaded. I'm so jaded. It's like, seriously, it's like he got into this. He got into this because he's absolutely loaded and he can afford to spend $2 million a year to try and slow and or reverse the aging process on his person. And he's sharing his journey for the altruistic goal of helping others. And then he switches over into buy my fucking broccoli and
he's not switching.
Dish.
He's still giving you guys all the information for free, but people are fucking lazy. And they're not going to make the meals themselves. They're not going to go out shopping. And
I'm going to do it. I'm going to have my own grow your hair back with a chicken and broccoli dish if you buy it from me.
But
I'm going to do it.
From what I can see, and I'm not here to defend anybody. I don't know if this guy's going to turn out to be whatever. I don't think it's a Paul Saladino situation or a Dave Asprey situation. Nothing against those guys, but I think it's different. I do think that he provides all the information that you need for free, but he also knows that there's a market because people are fucking lazy.
Well, that's true too.
That's it.
I was going to say what you said about age doesn't, age stops for no man. I went to a birthday party recently with my friend Emily, and her boyfriend's starting to lose his hair. And she took one look at me, and she's known me since before I had the transplant. And she said, "Morty, you did it." She says, "You've taken 10 years off."
Yeah.
And I was so happy. And then a few days later, I throw my back out, and I can barely fucking stand up.
Dude, that's life, man. I'm dealing with some like long-term sinus infection, comes and goes. Like yesterday, I'm feeling sick. I'm like, again? I got to take this nasal spray, and I got to do this sinus wash. Listen, it could be worse, There's a lot. You see these 25-year-old kids on Instagram who have cancer. I mean, I feel very lucky.
But sinuses and stomachs and backaches, this is all because of our tribe, Spencer. That's really what this is. So, us and Felix Unger.
Partially, yeah. But listen, Morty, we're going to take a couple more calls. I love the fact that you called in. But is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with? I mean, you've been through it all.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to just say one thing now. Like I said, having the hair transplant, and this goes out to Omer, the Israeli guy.
Yeah.
Look, I look at myself in the mirror in a certain light, and I get a little disappointed. I'll be honest with you. If I got overhead light, I can see scalp in the front.
Yeah.
Is my hairline as low as it was when I was in my at 18? No, it's quite a bit higher, and some angles looks a little odd. Am I happy about this? Of course not. But the bottom line is that it looks natural. I don't look like a freak, and I look normal. And that's the way that most people should evaluate their hair transplant results. You're not going to get Brad Pitt hair. I'm sorry. Okay? And
not unless you glue it on.
Yeah, exactly. And my doctor up front told me, said, you have very fine hair, which on the plus side is going to make for a natural looking hairline, but on the minus side it means hair density to get tight coverage is a lot more difficult because the hairs don't cover as much because they're thinner.
Right.
And now I look at myself in the mirror and I can see what he's talking about. Does it bother anybody else? No. Like I said, this very attractive woman said that I look 10 years younger. But if I look at myself in certain light, I can see, oh, God, I've got to comb it this way or comb it that way. It's like, it's not going to be perfect. And I don't care how good your surgeon is. There is going to be at least some level of disappointment. The trick is, like all things in life, we have to accept what we cannot change, or at the very least try to be kind to ourselves, and before we go ahead and try to gild a lily, we really need to evaluate where we are and what we can actually achieve.
Well, that's actually very well said. And that was my point at the end of the phone call was, look, man, just wait. You may not even need to use any more grafts. Get on the medication. Give it 6 months. Get used to what it is. See if there's any more growth from the maturing of the transplant. He may end up being just fine.
Yep.
All right, brother.
And,
good to hear.
And I'm not going to be a Robert Plant, and I'm okay with that, So,
dude, I used to be a little over 6 feet tall. I shrunk. I couldn't believe it.
Yep. That's what happens.
Now I'm like Joe's height. All right, brother.
Oh no.
Hey.
Take it easy, fellas.
All right, take care.
See ya, Morty. Bye-bye.
888, Joe, you're still tall. 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. It is a little shocking, though, like when you realize that how your body changes and the fact that you could actually, like, you see these old guys that become, like, super diminutive, like when they're, like, 80.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my dad shrunk down to, like, my dad shrunk to, like, 5'6" or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was, I think, he wasn't super tall, but he was maybe 5'10", when he was young. Mm-hmm. But, back in the day, he was born in 1923. That was pretty tall. And by the time he died, I remember giving him a hug, and I'm like, this is like a little dude. Like, put him on my shoulder. Yeah.
Put him in your pocket.
Yeah. Couldn't believe it. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, caller. Caller, you've been holding on for like...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's happening?
There you are.
Who's this?
My name's Anthony. Can't believe I got through. I actually sent you guys a email last week about my situation. I think it says send it to Bald Truth Radio.
Yeah, we don't get any emails.
You guys probably don't check it.
Yeah. I mean...
anyways, so I'm 33. I've had 2 FUTs. First was with doctor is J. Initials are JC. It's not John Cole or whatever his name is.
John Cole.
He's in the Carolinas.
Oh, it's not John
This
Cole.
was in March of 2021.
Can you hear me?
And then I had a
Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. So I'm just trying to talk. I'm asking you questions, and it didn't seem like you were hearing me. So it's not John Cole, but his initials are JC.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I had my first FUT in March of 2021, and then and that was around 2,600 grafts into the hairline mainly, and then kind of dispersed back into the crown. I probably was like a Norwood, I don't know, 3 or 4 maybe, but significant crown thinning, and the first FUT worked out great for the hairline. And then, for the crown, there was some coverage, but, 2,600 grafts dispersed, mainly focused on hairline, but then whatever was left over into the crown, that's really not going to get, at least for me, it wasn't going to get enough coverage for me to get the cosmetic change I wanted. So then, around 18 months later, a little more than that, December of 2022, I went back to the same doctor and got, another surgery that focused solely on the crown. And this was only about 1,300 grafts. And now here I am now, 14 months later. And I mean, yes, there's coverage. I mean, was there any change from the first surgery in the crown area? If I look in the mirror, I really can't tell a difference. And this is kind of going back to the caller you guys had before the previous one, where he, I guess, really didn't see much of a change either. And Joe said he was kind of like, well, it kind of seems to me like you didn't get enough grafts. And now I'm thinking the same thing in hindsight. Maybe I didn't get enough grafts. My donor is fine. It's adequate. I have a good donor supply. And if you know the doctor I'm talking about, he's a really great doctor.
Yeah.
Really great doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's, I'm trying to figure out what to do now. So
You're talking about
I'm on
about Jerry Cooley,
5 milligrams.
right? You're talking about Cooley, yeah.
Yep.
Well, you're how old? You're 33.
Yes.
And it sounds like you were what, like a Norwood 4 at 33? Before you started the surgery at 32?
Before, I mean, his assistant said that I was kind of, what's the word she used? Like moving towards, I would have gone maybe towards like a Norwood 5, maybe.
Right. Okay, so you have the outline of it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but right now, you really, if you look at me from the front, I was like, I got full head of hair. My hairline looks great. Like I look,
Well, first of all,
I was at a wedding.
Think about the miracle
I was at a
of that.
wedding over. I was at a wedding over at New Year's, and my cousin's girlfriend. She's like 21, 22, and she thought I was 23. So
Wow.
I was 23. So I mean, from the front I look fine, but then you look at me from the back, and my crown is just you can. So
Let me ask you a question. So from the front, you look fine. You're 33 years old. You've had 2 procedures already. You're on medication. How are you doing on the medication?
That's something else. I mean, the minoxidil, I guess, maybe worked. Maybe I don't know. Honestly, I don't know anymore. The finasteride, I think I've been on that for years. I'm on 5 milligrams daily, and at this point, I'm thinking, maybe I should maybe go to Dr. Cooley or maybe my local dermatologist and ask him about dutasteride. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. You already have a hair loss specialist, so I would actually probably stick with Dr. Cooley in this, when it comes to this. But so you're taking a ProScar tablet? You're taking 5 milligrams of finasteride every day?
Yep, every night.
Yeah, I mean that's how I started. So I mean I don't do that. I kind of loaded up my body. I felt intermittent. Is it intermittent? What's the word I'm looking for, Joe?
Intermittent.
Intermittent dosing. Yeah. Was
Yeah.
I think it's something else, but I'm losing my mind. But I kind of felt that I was able to use less of the drug and have the same benefits. But it's interesting for a young guy to be on 5 milligrams. What got you started on 5 milligrams?
Well, Dr. Cooley likes to have his patients, I guess, split the 5 milligram tablets and, take them, like this 1 milligram or whatever every
Right.
night, or even sometimes 3 times a week. And for me, it's got to a point where I honestly got so lazy enough that I even want to split the pills. So I just take the 5 milligrams.
Well, I'm glad. Listen, you're not having any adverse side effects. That's good. And
Yeah.
do you think that you're continuing to progress at all? Or do you think that things are stable?
Honestly, I don't. I mean, I feel like my hairline is definitely. It looks good from the front. Of course, I have like a fringe type hairstyle too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was taking pictures recently. I did notice some things going into the mid scalp. So I don't know.
Well,
What
here's
to
the
do.
thing.
Like if I
Surgery.
should, ask him to go on, because everybody says like that surgery should be the last line, last option. And I'm still not happy with the way my crown looks. But
Right.
like 1,300 grafts wasn't going to get the job done.
Now, would
in
you
my opinion.
have you tried using anything like a cosmetic concealer in the crown? Dermatch or fibers or something?
I have, and I can see like it's addictive, right? Because
Yeah.
you look good. Nobody really notices, but to me, it's a pain in the ass.
Well,
having to
let's
do
put it this way: it'll be a
my
lot.
barber's just like, well, my barber's getting on my case, and he's like, you should get a hair system, and I just don't want to. I definitely don't want to do that.
It'll be a lot more of a pain in the ass to have another surgery and for it to be fucked up. I want you to think about that, or to have another surgery and not be happy again. So it really is medication is key. Responding well to medication is key. Maintaining what you have is key, and everything else is a plus. So wearing fibers is a bit of a pain in the ass. I use Dermatch. It literally takes me. I don't even think it takes me a minute, maybe less than a minute, for me to use it. But I've been doing it for so long, it's kind of like second nature. And you're right, no one does notice it. The fact that your barber,
not to my knowledge. No one's ever said anything.
Well, as long as you feel good and you're walking around feeling confident, they maybe wish me that's the guy that paints his head, but whatever. I'm just kidding. But I don't think I would jump into surgery again right now. I would have another talk with Dr. Cooley, maybe go in and take.
Kind of, like I asked him, and he said that we can definitely put some more grafts in to strengthen to give it some density.
Of course.
What were his thoughts on the why?
I honestly, I didn't even ask him like why it wasn't enough density. I kind of knew it wasn't enough grafts because his tech was in the room with us and during my 7-month follow-up or 8-month follow-up, somewhere around there. And the tech just questioned Dr. Cooley. It's like, maybe we didn't get enough grafts, didn't do enough grafts. And Dr. Cooley just didn't really say anything. And I kind of thought the same thing, like the 1,300 grafts wasn't going to do it. And it's a strip too. And other people have commented online, it's like, why even waste your time doing a strip for only 1,300 grafts? But then Dr. Cooley, like you kind of think about it, you look on his gallery on his website and patient reviews, he is known for being conservative, and he's not really, at least in my opinion, you look at most pictures, really, how many are there where he does like a whole bunch of dense crowns? There aren't that many.
Right.
So maybe I should, consult some other doctors. I don't know. I love Dr. Cooley, but it's.
Well, dense crowns in general, you're not going to find a lot of them with any clinic unless there's some manipulation going on.
Right.
Because the crown just does not come out dense in most cases. Sometimes it looks dense, but it's usually not. And so, look, Dr. Cooley. I've seen his gallery. I've had some involvement with his video and photo protocols. Not involvement. I designed it so that he can get best photos possible without having to resort to tricks and things like this. He's the first doctor in the industry worldwide to standardize on 4K video for video documentation. Still the most consistent with that, I might add. But crown work, it's just, you're just not going to see a lot of it that's thick with anyone, because it does take more grafts for the crown to get the similar appearance that you would get with a different area of your scalp that has less grafts, because of coverage. Coverage gives the illusion of density, so that you don't need to have density, if that makes sense. So,
Right.
I mean, look, Dr. Cooley is one of the most engaging doctors working today, as far as welcoming questions, having discussions when patients have questions or maybe aren't completely happy with the outcome of a result. I highly encourage you to contact him and say, I want to talk more about this, talk about my options, and see what to do from here, and ask the questions. Should you have used more grafts? Why isn't there as much of an impact that we are hoping for? It's incumbent upon you to ask these questions when you have, especially a doctor like Dr. Cooley. He's not easy to get FaceTime with, so it's incumbent upon you to ask those questions. And this isn't just for you, caller. This is for anyone watching and listening. You guys are in the driver's seat. You are entitled to ask any question you want, and if you don't understand the answer, ask for clarification. Don't just say, "Oh, okay," when you don't know what it means, what you were just told. This happens all the time, and this isn't towards you, caller. It's just, this is what people do. It's like, oh well, why didn't this do this and that? Oh well, it's because of so and so, so and so. Oh, okay, not understanding a single word that was just uttered, and it moves on. You owe it to yourself to stop and say, I need to think about that for a second. Okay, that makes sense, but explain this or explain that. It's your right to do that. I highly suggest you do, because he's open to that. And he may not even suggest surgery. He may say, well, you know what, let's give it some more time, and then let's try to address this non-surgically, maybe with an exosome treatment, PRP, whatever you may suggest in that. Maybe that's play with your dosage, oral minoxidil, who knows? But he's a creative guy. He understands what's going on, and I think it's a good idea to stick with him. That's for sure.
Yeah, noted. And for right now, like you mentioned before, healing. He said, and others have said as well, usually it takes up to 18 months for the crown. I'm at 14 months now, so I'm kind of still. I think it's still healing, honestly. And I'm
okay.
kind of just sitting here, just letting it do its thing. And
That's all you can
perhaps
do.
a couple months, maybe up into 18th, I'll contact him and ask him some questions.
Well, here's the good news. You found a good person to work with. That's key. You already trust his surgical skill. Sometimes things don't turn out perfectly, as you pointed out for the first caller. The crown is a black hole, man. That's the problem. And sometimes it's not a terrible idea to be a little bit, more conservative in that area, to kind of reserve grafts for the mid-anterior scalp if you need it. Hair transplant surgery comes down to a supply and demand issue. And there's never enough supply to truly meet the demand without being creative. You know what I mean? Caller?
Yes. Supply and demand, and we have a finite donor supply.
Correct. Got another ADD guy. Joe's got ADD. The caller's got ADD. I'm just kidding, brother.
What?
I'm just kidding, brother. Listen, I hope we were able to help you. I'm glad you had great outcomes with Dr. Cooley, and I think Joe gave you some good advice.
Thank you guys for your time.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello? I'm here.
I was trying to process what you're talking
I'm
about.
talking to the
Oh,
caller.
yes.
He's just like
Yes.
silent.
Yes.
That's what it's
Stage
called.
fright. Phone fright.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad he seems like he had a really good result, and it's, to have a full hairline now, like when he said that he's, if you look at him from the front, he's got a full head of hair.
To be
That's
accused of
amazing.
being 10 years younger than he is, that's amazing. 23 years old as a kid,
Let's see who this is.
child.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Hello, this is Chuck. I called a couple weeks ago.
Hey, Chuck.
In regards
Chuck from where?
to L.A.
Chuck from LA. What's happening?
So I called a couple weeks ago talking about a topical minoxidil shed situation. My growth from it initially was great, and then I think I've been on it for about a year and a half, and the last I'd say 4 or 5 months it has not been looking, it's not like all gone, but it's very visibly not what it was when I initially started. I never had the initial shed. And I think you guys mentioned maybe that could be like a delayed initial shed situation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sometimes the shed is delayed. I mean, I did not have the finasteride dread shed that everyone talked about years ago.
Yeah, me neither.
And then I just remember it was like summertime. I was doing something else. This is before I started doing what I do in hair. And I'm at this production studio, and I'm like, I just like, what the fuck is going on? I've started to go through this massive shed, and I'm like, it's not working. Now, none of this was out there online yet. The internet was in its infancy. I had no one to turn to. I just upped my dosage to 7.5 milligrams and crossed my fingers. And I was doing that every day. Then it was like 2 years later, I started to read about people going through these sheds. So in your case, yeah, I mean, it could be delayed for sure. You probably caught everything in an anagen phase. And it kind of, you just kind of rode that wave for a while, and now things are changing.
Is it, I've read that some people, it takes them like a couple of full hair cycles to really appreciate some of the minoxidil results.
It's not going to be a full hair cycle because you're not going through full hair cycles. But,
Sure, okay.
It could be a couple of sheds before you see it, but not hair cycles, yeah.
It's, yeah. I keep trying to, like, do more research about if I've been trying to take your advice and do nothing and just wait it out and see. And
you probably said it during this call too, but I didn't hear it. Are you taking oral minoxidil or topical?
Topical.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
but I've been.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. So I've, for my specific amount of loss, I feel like topical makes more sense, but I am kind of tempted to just see what oral minoxidil would do.
Why do you think it makes more sense, topical versus oral, besides?
I guess, maybe not in an efficacy standpoint, but more in like a localized treatment standpoint. Because it's really just, one of my right temple is still pretty much holding all of the initial growth from starting the minoxidil, but my left temple was alongside it doing really well. And then, the last 4 or 5 months, I've got a haircut and it's grown back out, and I'm wearing my hair in the same kind of style, and there's way more see-through points.
And so you started, you said how long ago exactly? A year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing. The doctors will tell you, and the companies will tell you that topical minoxidil never stops working. And I'm not saying that it has. I mean, you could be going through just a delayed shed, and it may benefit you for a few more years. I've always found that topical minoxidil kind of always acted as a Band-Aid. I used it for quite a long time. It was all that was available when I started this process. I mean, Rogaine wasn't even approved until I think it was 1994 or 1993. Oh, no, actually, it may be 1989. It may be 1989.
Yeah, it was the 80s.
Yeah, but when I started in the process, I had to have it compounded. So, getting calls like this throughout the years and just kind of seeing this in the real world, it always seems like topical minoxidil is kind of like a Band-Aid. It may give you a few years. It may...
Even in conjunction with finasteride, you think?
Yeah, I was never a fan of doing it with finasteride. It was either one... To me...
Like finasteride orally, like to hold it, and then I was, to my understanding, it's that then the minoxidil results last way, way longer because it's not necessarily... It's a Band-Aid on top of, you actually treating it.
Right. Well... Yeah, I mean, all I can say is this. A lot of people are stuck on minoxidil for many, many years, and they don't necessarily need to be. Finasteride is doing the trick. And there are a lot of people who are stuck on it, and they keep seeing their hair loss get worse. You're relatively new into the game, so you could probably, it may work well for you for a few years. This could just be a telogen effluvium. But now that doctors are willing to prescribe low-dose oral minoxidil, I think you kind of have to think of the long game. So maybe at some point you give this some more time, and then if things start to reverse, don't F with it until you need to.
Right.
And then consider talking to your doctor about, using oral. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
always...
I've been very I don't really have a ton of hesitancy to do that. Of course, I want to figure this out, my current situation, but in the future, because I've been on finasteride for 5 years.
And how do you feel on the drug? Fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Good.
Like I was I held really solid ground, and then about the fourth or the third and a half, fourth year, that's when I added in the topical, and then got a ton of growth to the point where it was Norwood 0, just fully.
That's amazing. Well, the good news is that you're obviously a good responder to topical minoxidil.
Yeah,
so
I couldn't find a lot of people talking about getting a better response from oral when they switched from topical. Like they tried it for the convenience and then it didn't, the results weren't great. Maybe they didn't give it a long enough try. I don't know. That's just a few stories I've seen.
Yeah, and that's the problem with all the stories, and everybody's different. Yeah. Everyone's physiology is different. Everyone's experience is slightly different.
Have you guys in your practice seen that? Like someone is on topical, they decide to switch to oral, and it's
I didn't know. Joe, you ever practice?
Way better.
Shh. I didn't know Joe had to practice.
You weren't supposed to let anyone know. But have a
your
practice.
Is
Jesus.
This is what I've seen. In the long run, topical minoxidil doesn't seem to hold up. But it's still early days for you. It may work for you. You may get 5 years of success with it. So I don't know if I would rock the boat right now and kind of just see what happens. Just continue the process. You probably just went through your first telogen effluvium, your drug-induced shed. That can definitely reverse itself, and you can get back to your Norwood 0 baseline in 6 months. You don't know.
And the telogen effluvium that can last up to 6+ months, right? That's pretty common.
It can, but it probably won't. How long has it been for you since you noticed a change?
It's close to 5 months, I'd say, that it's been not as good.
Right, but are you noticing a lot more hair in the drain, in the shower, on your desk, laptop?
No, like visible shedding is never a concern. It's always just once I've styled it and I look at it it doesn't quite look the same.
Well, that's actually good. So you're not going through anything massive. So
No.
yeah, I think you seem to be on a lucky track. Let's put it that way. So I would give it more time. Just keep using it. Don't switch brands. Don't
For sure, yeah.
Don't F with it.
And in regards to long-term use, have you? So you've seen much more people do better in the long run on an oral minoxidil situation.
No, I don't know a lot of people who've been on oral minoxidil for the long run. I know a few people that called my show many years ago, and they're probably still on it, but they were prescribed a higher dose of oral minoxidil before a lot of doctors were prescribing it, and they had fantastic results, so they may still be on it. But in general, I think the longest is maybe 5 years of anybody that's ever contacted us recently.
I know
before they had a
Yeah. So yeah, I can't give you a reasonable response to that because I just don't know.
For sure.
So I know it's stressful, but it sounds like you're in a pretty good position. You're doing well on finasteride. You may have lost some ground, but it sounds like you still have a lot of hair.
Yeah. Just trying to figure out what it's. Anytime there's a shed, it's always that fear of like, is this a decline right now, or is this just like a fluctuation?
Most of the time, I will tell you, at least at the beginning stages, it's a fluctuation. So I think you're probably in a good position. You may get a few more years out of it. And if you're really lucky, it could be a decade. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, my camera just shut off, man. Why is that?
Yeah, I heard it power down too.
That's so funny. Actually, I think there may have been a surge. All right, brother. Well, listen, I hope we were able to help you.
What,
Yeah,
just
no,
went away
I
again?
My camera just went away again. Hold on for a second. Any more questions?
Oh, I guess I did have this is just like I'm in no, obviously any position or trajectory to get a hair transplant right now or anything like that. But is it do a lot of people come off of, like, would it be wise to come off of minoxidil and like go through that shed, go back to your pre-minoxidil baseline, and then assess like what you would need from there in order to like simplify your longevity rather than like, you know what I mean? Like just to be like just on finasteride after that.
Just do a hair loss medication cleanse and reset to 0?
Just the topicals, I mean, just to like simple, because like if I were to do that, I just imagine that I would not want to use minoxidil ideally. Like it's just annoying. And if I were to lose what I would from stopping it, I feel like that would be a more appropriate like position to then go in and say, hey, this is my situation. What do we do? Rather than like the crazy fluctuation, potential 5-year, 10-year, then it stops working minoxidil, because that might put you in a worse spot down the line, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, I see the prospect of, it might stop working in 10 years to be kind of a non-starter because, you might be dead in 10 years. It's like,
yeah.
If you can hang on to 10 years through the use of a medication, why wouldn't you do it? Mm-hmm. It's either stop taking it and lose it now, or continue to take it and lose it in 10 years. If that even in fact is a possibility, which I don't subscribe to the idea that medications just stop working. Mm-hmm. It's more of an issue of genetics catching up,
right.
Where you're still losing your hair. It's just whatever medication you're using has slowed down that loss to the point where it takes that long for you to even notice it.
Mm-hmm.
where it just hits you. It's like, Jesus, where'd my hair go? It's literally like that for a lot of people, where the progression of loss is so slow that it takes years for the cumulative effect to actually wind up being noticeable. That's what's going on with these my hair loss medication stopped working cases,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned. But back to your original question, why not keep taking it and hang on to your hair?
The only
that's the
time that
ultimate goal, to keep your hair.
I would make the change is if you felt that it was a waste of time, So I decided to get off and wean myself off of topical minoxidil. The day that they stopped sponsoring the Bald Truth, I'm just kidding. I decided that, you know what, this is. I don't know if this is doing me any good. I started to go through some progression. I felt I didn't want to keep doing it. I'm like, finasteride seems to really be holding. So I weaned off it. It took me about a year, and I didn't go through anything dramatic as far as a shed. I just felt I didn't want to be stuck on this thing, and I wanted to see how finasteride held my hair. So I understand why you want to do it. But at this point, especially since you lost some ground already, I don't know if it's a great time to do it, because you may end up going through more of a shed than you realize. Right now, you're not seeing anything that's visible on your keyboard or in your sink or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You don't want to see that. You don't want to have to deal with that emotional roller coaster. But if it does start to happen at some point, that may be a time when you can consider weaning off and maybe getting on another medication, like oral minoxidil.
Yeah. I guess it's just so if I'm in a situation where the topical is, however down the line, when the topical is not seeming to work as much anymore, or like shedding way too much, and I've deemed it as like, okay, this is probably run its course maybe. Would that even make sense then to attempt the oral minoxidil? Because wouldn't that just be the same active ingredient inside of my body?
It's the same. It's the same active ingredient inside of your body, but it acts much. It's much stronger. So it would have it has a much more profound effect. So it's a consideration, or you could consider upping your dosage of finasteride, talking to your doctor about that. You're gonna have a lot of options. How old are you now?
Almost 30.
Okay. Well, I'm working on the cure, so just keep listening.
Okay. Well, I should be around.
Almost, you're a kid, man. I'm telling you, I do believe this. I've been doing this for a long time. When I started doing the program, I really thought hair cloning was down like 5 years down the road. But now, after 27 years, I actually believe we're getting closer to at least improvements in medication and stuff that's being prescribed off-label, like low-dose oral minoxidil. Doctors who are willing to kind of work a little bit more with dutasteride, and they're not that concerned about upping dosage or telling people to potentially. They're getting to the point where now they're thinking that finasteride may be dose dependent, where for almost 2 decades, every doctor would deny that. I would always say on the program, there's no doubt that it's dose dependent. I experienced that myself. So you have time to experiment, and right now you're holding ground. So I would just continue as is and see what happens in a year.
Yeah.
All right?
Cool.
All right, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank
All right.
you.
Good luck. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Vince Warren, give us a call now.
Yeah, you can give us a
He's
call
complaining
now.
about going to voicemail. It means that the lines are busy.
Now that I got the new setup, I should fix the phones. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is David. I'm from Texas. How you guys doing?
Hey, David from Texas. What's going on? We're in
Hey,
Texas.
David.
Hey, I just wanted to call because, so here's my situation. I had a transplant. I had about 5,000 grafts with Rahal about 10 years ago.
Okay.
and it was a
wow.
really good job. Looked amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me back, those crucial years of my youth. But it's progressed, behind that. So it doesn't look that great now. The crown is bad. Behind it is bad. Everything's bad. But the thing is that I'm told that I have lots of donor, grafts still. So I've been quoted that, to even do another procedure, that I have at least 4,000 grafts. I mean, I guess in theory they could say, oh, it looked like it, but I'm just saying, like, that's the approximation that they made, is that there's 4,000.
Well, I'm assuming
So I was kind of surprised
10
about
years
that.
ago you had a strip, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
had FUT.
Yeah.
So I
That's
was
why.
kind of surprised about that. Why did I have a strip?
No, I'm saying that's why. That's why you have so much left in your bank, because they didn't have to go in there and
Exactly.
destroy your scalp and take 5,000 grafts out
Mm-hmm.
and
So
leave you
here's
with
my question.
yeah.
Sorry, like since I'm already cut, should I keep doing FUT until they can't do any more FUT and then switch over to FUE,
If you have
or is it time?
if you have the scalp elasticity and you're already comfortable with Dr. Rahal,
Yeah, but the problem is Dr. Rahal doesn't do strip anymore.
really.
From what I understand, yeah, that's old
Not
news.
I mean not even
He's
for his old
FUE only.
not even for his older patients? That I didn't know.
I don't.
No one told
I
me
don't
that.
think so.
I got to call that office. That's disappointing.
I could be wrong.
I was
yeah.
actually going to go to Turkey with Erdogan, and I mean, I still might. But yeah, he also, like you said, only does FUE, and I'm like, oh, but I wanted to do I wanted to exhaust everything in the FUT, and I had seen Dr. Wong too, and he had, but this was like 5 years ago, but he was like, you're not, it's not time yet, but he was like, yeah, you can still do some with the FUT, you can still do further FUT. I mean, but money's kind of a concern too. So that's why I was like, all right, time to go to Turkey and just get this done.
Let me
now
ask
I'm
you
like
this.
hesitant because I'm
Yeah.
like,
Let me
yeah,
ask you this.
yeah.
So you had the work done 10 years ago. You've progressed to the point where you don't like the way things look. How does the transplanted hair look?
I think I've even lost transplanted hair, honestly.
Now, were you put on finasteride 10 years ago?
No, because I took finasteride when I was really young and had side effects from it, and
Okay.
I tried everything. So right now I'm taking RU58841 and topical dutasteride. But,
Okay.
I mean, I don't think anything is as good as the oral meds.
Now, I just have to ask, where are you getting your RU58841? I mean, do you realize, no one realizes that these people are just slapping labels on this stuff, shipping it out from China and other places.
Yeah, it's desperation, man. You know how it is.
Yeah, I mean, Rousseau Pharmaceuticals stopped, and this is what kills me. They stopped doing the clinical trials on a real possible topical anti-androgen for hair loss. Why do you think that is? Because they weren't going to make money on it?
Could be a part of it. I mean, it could obviously also be the safety issue.
I would go with number 2. But it just amazes me. You guys have to make this shit in your bathtub, basically. But listen, you're not alone, obviously. I mean, it's been it's still being talked about. Even Derek from More Plates, More Dates talked about it or used it. I mean, it's just it's amazing to me. He's a smart guy.
I've had less side effects from that than from oral finasteride.
Yeah, but
So,
you're going bald. It's not working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been great with the consistency either, but yeah, that's true.
Aha!
That's what I'm saying. Listen,
The truth comes out.
There is no one that has ever used that stuff, no matter how long they've been talking about it, even consistently, that has had long-term results. Doesn't exist. And I don't know if you could find if you could find that online anywhere. You got to show me. So anyway, listen, I understand that you had, it's unfortunate that you dealt with adverse side effects from finasteride. I don't know if Joe, you may have heard this, but believe it or not, for whatever reason, guys who have had long-term side effects or side effects from finasteride sometimes do better on dutasteride, even though you're really blocking so much more DHT.
It is so funny you mentioned that, because I tried dutasteride,
Yeah.
and I felt so much better. I mean, think about it. Mentally, I'm 10 times as scared to take that first dutasteride pill
Right.
as there was every time when I tried to go back to finasteride. I'd quarter a tablet and be like, okay, maybe I'd be okay. Mentally, I'm more scared of the dutasteride, the oral dutasteride.
Yeah.
I did better on the dutasteride than on the finasteride. It took me about a week in that I kind of felt a little bit of weakness, and I just immediately dropped it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because logically it just doesn't make sense. It shuts down both types of DHT. But I do feel like I'm one of those guys that it impacts me less than finasteride for whatever reason.
Yeah, you know what? I don't even understand the mechanism, but it's pretty common. So there are guys who they were like, oh, I'm growing tits, or I have a lower libido on the finasteride, and they try dutasteride, and they've been on it for 10 years, no issues. I'm not telling you to do that, but that's something you can talk to with a physician, because you may actually be able to grow back a significant amount of hair. You don't know. And
well,
yeah,
no, sorry, keep going.
No, and I understand you want to go have surgery. I would say, if it were me, I already had a linear scar and I had success with the strip, that yes, you could always have more stretch back. The scar could always be different the second or third time. Usually 2 strips you can be pretty solid. But if you want to get the most out of your donor, and you already have a scar in the back of your head, and you've already been through that experience, it only makes sense to me to really consider strip over FUE at this point. And there's still some really good doctors who are doing strip. What do you think,
thanks.
Joe?
That's exactly what.
I think it's absolutely worth considering, given the fact that you're progressing with your loss. You had a fantastic FUT before. My very general rule of thumb with progressive strip surgeries is each subsequent surgery will give you roughly 60% of your previous harvest.
That's true.
If assuming that a big session is attempted. So if Dr. Rahal was going for a big session of 5,000 grafts, and you go back someplace that is proficient with strip surgery, and they're going for a big strip, not so much sticking their boot into your scalp to get as much as possible, but going for a big one, you could expect maybe 3,000 grafts, and then after that maybe 1,700, 1,800, something like that, and then that's probably. Maybe even after the second one, it's time to go for FUE if you need more work done.
Yeah, so sorry if I wasn't clear before. I actually did. I actually had been cut twice. I did 4,000 the first time, and he didn't mean to pull 4,000, but it just the strip just had more. Just had to contain more grafts. I guess the density was higher than expected. And then the second time was 1,000. It was just like a minor touch-up kind of thing.
Ah,
okay.
That changes everything I just said. Doesn't apply.
Yeah,
you're on your own.
It sounds like you're saying that third.
Just kidding.
It sounds like you're saying that third cut is going to be even lower yield, right?
Well, you only took
lower harvest.
Yeah, but you
lower
only took
harvest.
1,000 out of the second one. But yeah, I mean, every time you go in there, you have, the ability to have a comfortable closure becomes more difficult, and they usually will try to harvest less hair. You want to try to maintain the scar that you have, but I mean, I still would say that easily, and I'm not a doctor. A reasonable surgeon would go for 2,500 grafts, for sure.
And that shouldn't impact my future FUE available donor grafts.
No, not in my view.
Awesome. And that sounds like the way to go.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, granted, you have to judge the probability or the chance of stretch back on the scar. That's always a chance. There's always a chance for that first surgery or third or fourth surgery, and understand that if and when you do wind up having an FUE surgery in the future, you might be in a position where a couple hundred of those are allocated to fill in the donor scar. I've had that done, and it's
I know.
nice
I
to be
wanna
able to
do
have that
exactly that.
option. It's but just evaluate, make the decision, move forward, give it the time it deserves to manifest with a final result, and step back, evaluate, enjoy it, move on, however you seem fit.
But dude, if you can get on, a good oral medication, or even consider oral minoxidil, again, I hate to keep pushing it, but you need something because you've been through 10 years of this. You've continued to lose ground because you weren't able to take finasteride. Another transplant can get you closer to where you want to be, but you want to be able to maintain it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, since I've had so much problem with meds, that's why I've always looked at it like I have to absolutely try to get as much from, that's why I wanted FUT 10 years ago. I've always thought like I have to absolutely do everything I can to get everything I can.
How old of a guy are you now?
But I'm about to be 38.
38.
So I'm like, I don't want to wait until I'm like 45 to like do this. You know what I mean?
Oh man,
like
45? Are you kidding me? You're done. You might as well. You're 1 foot in the grave at 45.
Exactly.
Might as well hang it up,
2
man.
more years of my 30s. I got 2 more years of my 30s. I don't want to. I don't want to be bald. Like, what's the point? I'm going to be bald the last 2 years of my 30s, and then like
life is over at 45. You're done. Out of the game.
Euthanasia's available now in Canada.
Hey, all right.
Dude, your country, man,
we'll take care
by
of
the
it.
way, is unbelievable.
Yeah, you go to the hair clinics in Canada. If it doesn't work out, you just,
We know
off yourself.
We know a doctor that actually offered somebody a gun. Just saying.
It wasn't in Canada.
No.
Is he in your foundation?
No.
Okay.
All right, brother. Listen, good luck. I hope we were able to help
All right, thanks, you guys.
All right. Take care.
Thanks a lot. That's great feedback. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care,
All right.
man.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
We started late. I don't know how Joe is doing right now. So, Joe, let me know if you want to take another call.
Is there someone on hold?
I wouldn't say that if there wasn't anybody on hold.
I got to clarify. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Let's do it.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
But
Hello?
I'm still there mentally because when I talk,
Dude, you got to turn down your computer, brother.
strip clubs and all that. And he's pretty much still himself. He's just a little bit slower.
Now, what are we listening to? Who is this? Who's slower?
Hang on. Hello?
Yeah. You're calling a radio show,
okay,
brother.
I'm sorry, man. You're the TV's on delay. Your thing's on delay. I was on another line.
Yeah. What happened? Who's slower? What's going on?
Did we interrupt?
You talking about Joe?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, no, I was Vince, the bodybuilder from Indiana. I was going to give you a call and give you an update about the creatine situation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, Vince.
How you doing, Vince?
So,
You gonna give me a good soundbite?
yeah, I don't know how much of the other conversation you heard, but your show is on like a 20-second delay, so I was kind of waiting for the other caller to hang up. I had both TVs going at the same time, but sure, use it on a soundbite.
Yeah. What's
Send
up?
me 10%.
You got it.
But anyway, the Intelligent Fluvium, it's been about 5 months. I told you I was going to ride it out because I live in northern Indiana, so pretty much wear a hat all winter anyway. So I figured it's the time to kind of test this stuff. Does it cause hair loss? Does it cause a shed? Does it this and that? Well, yeah, I went through a massive shed. And as of about a month ago, that was about 4.5 months out, it is coming back. The hair is coming back. It's still sparse in the mid-scalp, in the back of the mid-scalp, but the whole forelock area, which is where I had the 3 FUTs between the forelock and the back of the mid-scalp, it is coming back.
That's great.
So if there's anybody that's concerned about taking creatine and staying on it, you're probably going to go through a shed if you're as sensitive as I am. However, it won't come back as quick. It's been about 5.5 months now. I'm going to give it till April. You know, if it's not fully back, I might just get off entirely. But I'm on creatine for other reasons too. You know, cognitive benefits, not just lifting weights and all that. But I want to stay on it at least until April or beyond, and see if I go back through a shed. Because I'm trying to. If there's anyone that can give anecdotal evidence that it causes hair loss or not, I kind of feel like I'm the one that could speak on that.
Well, 100%. And also the fact that you're willing not to.
The hair does come back.
Yeah, you're willing not to abandon ship and see how you do on it. I think it's a great experiment, and it is anecdotal. You know, you're one person, but as you know, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I have gotten, a lot of calls over the years from people who were taking creatine, who were going through sheds. I believe I was one of them when I was younger as well. So,
but the thing is most people get off of it though because they freak out. I did that.
That's what I did.
This time I decided to write it out.
Yeah, that's why you're patient zero. You're a great. If that makes sense, this is a good barometer. We can see if it's just going to be temporary, and if people have the mental ability or equipped to ride it out, then
Well,
they
if I
could be
lived
in a
in
good
an
position.
area that had nice weather year round, I probably wouldn't have wrote it out. You
Right.
know? But I live if I live where you live, Spencer, I would have never touched it probably. But me and Joe can kind of just test it out. It's just cold as shit and dark as shit where we live about 6 months of the year.
Well,
but the other thing I wanted to talk about was I had contacted my doctor the other day. We were talking about maybe doing a fourth and final FUT. Because I want to get the back of the mid-scalp done and basically just leave the crown open. I use concealers on that. It only takes about a minute to do it. I know your other caller was kind of worried about it. I think it's kind of a black hole. It's an area I don't really want to touch unless I tap into my beard because I have very dense, robust beard hair. But, the topic does so well back there that I'm not too concerned about the crown right now, if ever, because the concealers do really well. We had talked about oral minoxidil because I'm a Norwood 6, almost a Norwood 7, and I've gotten 3 FUTs combined with FUE with very good results, but obviously I need as much help as I can get. And I had asked him about oral minoxidil a couple of years ago, and he's reluctant to prescribe it to me. He's like, not enough evidence out there, blah, blah, and, how can you justify getting a heart problem for hair? And I said, fair enough, because I trust my doctor. He does really good work. And, he's just overall a good person. But I talked to him last week and said, it's been a couple of years since we talked about it. What do you feel about it now? And he says the same thing. He won't do it. And I'm kind of I'm a bit bummed out about it because I keep hearing, everyone's getting really great results.
Who's your doctor?
Dr. Aranis in Deerfield, Illinois. You familiar with him?
I'm not. Aranis?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about him. He's extremely cheap, $2 a graph, and does hella quality of work, man.
Really?
Getting 3 FUTs for 11,000 USD and great results. And I've had other doctors look at it. I'm like,
how do you spell his name?
Aranis.
Aranis. I'll look him up.
And I've had other doctors look at it, and I'm like, no, man, it looks really good. Everything's the way it should look. And we had talked about oral minoxidil, and he's just against it. And I don't have any heart issues. I don't want to go behind his back, because I trust him, and go get the stuff myself and try to experiment with it. The only I've been using topical for about 5 years now. The only issue I've ever had with it, other than it being annoying, is I used to microneedle. I don't really do it anymore. I kind of agree with Spencer. I think over time it's just going to damage your scalp. I did it to get some vellus hair back in the crown, and it worked.
It worked, sure.
Enough to attach the concealers to. And I microneedle now about once every 8 weeks just to keep it back there. I did, however, apply minoxidil one time to the back of the crown after microneedling, and I did get heart palpitations. So I don't know if that's a testimony to say I shouldn't take oral.
Yeah. I don't know if it. I don't know if it is either. And just so you know, you wouldn't be going behind your doctor's back. You have to just make a decision on whether or not if this is the advice that you think is best for you. You can speak to other doctors about it. And, it's just a decision that you have to make. You can't let one physician, even if he gave you a great hair transplant, make a decision. Trust me, I've had issues in my life where I've had to go to several doctors, and everyone gives me a different opinion. And then it comes down to me to making the right decision. I had a urological issue that, this one doctor was putting me on this medication, and it wasn't what he thought it was. It had nothing to do with, I had like a tiny prostate, because I'm on Proscar.
Shit, yeah.
So essentially, I went to, what I needed was a certain level of physical therapy to fix the problem. Something pretty simple, and exercise. And, I needed no medication. So, you just don't know. Every doctor practices medicine slightly different. And I like the idea that he's conservative about it, and he's not just dishing it out like candy, because once people get the green light now, if they see an ad or they see something at a conference, they start prescribing it. So it's good that he's cautious. But in the end, you have to make your own decisions. And if you really want this, speak to a few doctors and then make an assessment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if you remember, about a year ago, I told you I went through like 12 surgeries. And the reason is because not hair surgery, other surgeries like on my pelvis. And before I became a bodybuilder, it's actually what inspired me to get into it, because I was in the process of repairing my own body, because I got botched on a surgery years ago. And about 15 years ago, and it cost me 11 surgeries to fix it. So it's like I traveled the whole United States, and I even went over to the UK and had surgery, and did all this stuff. So like I totally agree, but it's just like with hair, I'm like,
what kind of surgery? What kind of surgery were you botched on?
I had what you had. You said you had a hernia. I tore a core muscle. And it was like a hernia, so they put a mesh in me.
A mesh, yeah.
And I didn't. I didn't actually need a mesh in me, and the mesh actually failed. It shrunk. It got stuck in me. They couldn't get it out of me. I got permanent damage all through that area. And
I'm so sorry.
You got to become like a millionaire through suing these people. No, these companies are so well protected. You're kind of, you have to be your own advocate, just like hair. You can't sue these people if you get a bad result, And it's the same way with the medical field.
It's funny.
I had to get a new hip and everything, and if the hip, and I found out the hip I got, could be poisoning me right now. It's just you don't know this stuff till 15 years later when data comes out, and there's nothing I can do.
Now, why do you think that hip could be poisoning you?
It's made of metal. The ball is metal, and the cup is metal. When the two metals rub together, it releases what are called metal ions into the bloodstream. And I have that, and they knew that when they put it in. However, they thought a certain amount of metal ions wouldn't be too bad of an idea. And I have like 1.1 parts per billion. Doesn't sound like a lot, but now there's brain scans showing that it does affect the brain at as low as 0.4 parts per billion, and they couldn't believe it. They have technology now that can show that if they inject like a dye into your body and it goes all throughout your body, they can actually see the metal throughout your body. That's what I'm saying. There's a support group for all of it, just like there is for mesh, just like there is for hair. Every industry in the world's all messed up. The mesh is terrible. The hip is doing great. It's allowed me to I have no issues, no pain with it, but it could definitely cause, some Parkinson's later in my life.
Now, did you need to get your hip replaced because of the original mesh procedure? Is that what?
Yeah, so I had the mesh on the corner on my groin area, and the mesh shrunk, and it destroyed the muscles in my groin, which connect to your hip. So it pulled my hip inward and caused my hip to grind out. So I was bone-on-bone arthritis real quick.
Oh, my God. And how old are you now?
So I had to get like a new hip, and then they had to reconstruct my groin. It took like a dozen surgeries. And I still live in the pain with it every day, and I got back issues now because of it. But, it is what it is. I work on it every day. I'm benching over 300 pounds now. There was a point in my life where I was in a dark and gloom area. Like Joe talks about, he was in a dark place early in his life. You've talked about yours, Spencer, and I'm like, man, all at the same age, we were going through basically medical procedures that just had as depressed for about a decade.
I'm so sorry to. I mean, you told me that you spoke about this before, but I don't remember
I didn't go into detail.
how profound, of an issue this is. And
Yeah, I had to relearn to walk and everything. It was a long time. It took about 15 years to get everything back together, and I figured I lost all my hair because of all the stress of all that. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Because there's no balding in my family anywhere. Both grandparents had full head of hair. My dad had full head of hair. My brother full head of hair. All my cousins full head of hair. I'm the only one who lost hair. So I'm like, I want my damn hair back.
I get it.
Once I got all that stuff done. So then I did, the 3 FUT surgeries after that, and so I think I'm on like a total of like 14, 15 surgeries in my life so far. So it's just like I'm kind of like numb to when it comes to surgery.
And how old are you now?
35.
Jesus Christ! God bless you, man. I mean, you sound like you got your shit together, and you've overcome a lot.
Yeah, you really don't know how strong you are until being strong is your only option.
It's amazing. That's a great.
Some of the things I used to care about, complain about, they're just like water under the bridge for me anymore. I hear people complain about certain things. I'm like, man, you can't let that stop you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an
honestly,
amazing story.
My hair did.
Your hair.
As
so
hard
what do you
as
think?
it was to learn to rewalk and do everything for 15 years all over again and get to where I'm at and build a hell of a body, which I've been able to do. It's taken a long time to do it all. Losing my hair sucked, and I wanted it fixed.
So out of everything that happened, this is going to sound like a crazy question, would you say that hair loss, even with all of the surgical fuck-ups, the hip replacement, everything you needed to deal with, how profound was hair loss compared to that?
Let me think. If they didn't make hats, I would say just as bad.
It's amazing.
You can always put on a hat and get about your day. You can't, when you're in a wheelchair and crutches, you can't hide that.
Yeah.
If I could put on fake legs and walk, and I wouldn't worry about it. I wasn't embarrassed about people, looking at me on crutches or any of that. It was just more of going from being, a top tier athlete to what the hell is this,
Yeah.
That was the biggest ego blow for me. It's like I was always, I was always kind of the best at every sport I played, and you're respected a certain way when you're the best.
Course.
And then to go like that, to just crippled, people kind of, after a while, they don't really feel sorry for you anymore. They actually kind of look down on you like you're a loser. It's weird how psychology works.
And you've been through a lot, brother, man. And I'm glad that you shared. I'm glad that you shared it with us. I have a better understanding of what you went through. And it is scary what goes on out there.
Self-improvement journey. Now, I think that's why I kind of was a little bit bummed out about the oral minoxidil, because it's kind of like I've hit a bump in the road. I've been doing nothing but progressing the last 5 years, getting my hair back, getting stronger and stronger than ever. And all of a sudden, it's like, boom. He told me that, and I was like, but I like the guy a lot.
Well,
I got to ask Joe and Spencer what they think.
But you have to go with your gut in the end, and but you do have the option of speaking to other doctors, and seeing, especially doctors who are prescribing it a lot, and seeing what they come back with, what they're seeing in their practices. Because if he's not prescribing it, then he's not really seeing anything firsthand.
That's what I was
and
asking.
This actually goes back to what I was talking about at the top of the show, where I was talking about the clinic culture, where you get these beliefs in the clinic about what works and what doesn't, and you're not being exposed to some of these treatments that do work. You're just hearing about the cases that didn't. So I highly suspect that that's what's going on with this guy, because I've never heard of the guy. I think maybe I have, but most likely not. Spencer's not heard of the guy. How much mingling can he be doing with colleagues that we do know that are using this medication or prescribing this medication on a regular basis with success? So I feel like that's exactly what's going on, and you do owe it to yourself to kind of branch out, spread your wings, and go find someone else that can tell you more about it.
Right. Yeah, it sucks. I know you guys are saying be your own advocate. It does feel like betrayal in a way, because Because after 15 years, if I had over 40 doctors working on me, this is the number one doctor I've liked the most. I've liked some of my doctors. Don't get me wrong; that got me back on my feet literally. This one is because I've been watching your channel for about 6-7 years now, and I mean, I'm pretty educated. I would think. I mean, I'm always learning something new. But like when he talks, he knows just about everything. I'm like, man, this guy, he knows it all. And I asked him if he heard of your guys' show, and he's like, yeah, I tune in every now and then. But I'm like, why do you fly so much under the radar? And he's just not worried about it. He's like, no. He's like, I'm always busy, and I'm just not worried about it. It does quality hair.
It's a fine attitude to have, actually. I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
He's also
just
charging.
Not all about the ego. You go on his website, he's just got a lot of results everywhere, and they're realistic too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he told me before I ever had my first hair transplant. He's like, your lateral humps are preserved. No guarantee they're going to stay there, of course.
Yeah.
He's like, you're a future Norwood 7. We could do this, but you have to have real expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he's like, you can get a lot of hair on top. And I kind of learned, the framing of the face from him. Because when I originally went for a consultation, I wanted just my crown done. I was more depressed about losing hair in my crown. Because I always feel like when you have a bald crown, it just gives that creepy look. But I was so used to just seeing the thin hair on top of my head, it didn't bother me. I was literally putting gel in it. Now I look at old photos, I'm like, thank God he talked me out of doing the crown. And just going...
Well, I've seen Spencer without the paint in the back, and I can attest to that.
It is creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah.
I walk around, I'm a creep.
No, I'm talking. I always just thought like the Norwood 7 look was just a bad look. It's like the creepy neighbor next door kind of look. Maybe that's my imagination. I'm just glad he talked me out of doing it because now I just spray the topic back there and I gel the front and it looks like a full head of hair. Had we done it the way I wanted to do it, I would be screwed.
Yeah, and you could end up having a reverse target on the top of your head, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really put concealers in the front to give you hair. You need hair there already to use the concealers. And he's like, no, I'm 100%. Telling you want to go from the front to the back. And he's like, you want your face back is what you really want. He's like, you want your hair back, but this will give you your face back, which is what you're after.
That's actually well said, Vince. Listen, man, thank you for sharing your story, brother. I mean, I had no idea that you'd been through so much, and you've come out the other side, and you sound like you got your shit together, too. And I appreciate the update on the creatine as well.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate everything you guys do, and I look forward to listening every week. Thank you, guys.
All right, brother. Listen, thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
Yep.
Take care.
All right, take care, Joe. Take care, Spencer.
You never know what people go through in life.
Yeah.
When people are judging people and you're looking at people and you're dealing with people, everyone's got a fucking story.
And that one, it's like no more contests on who's got the most surgeries. You win.
Oh, 100%. And, I have to tell you that my guy was old school surgeon. It was just an old school hernia operation. They were doing meshes already.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just regular, tie that shit up, stitch it up, go in there. Meshes actually started in Canada. It used to be called the Canadian mesh. You guys F everything up.
Yeah, that's the way we roll.
So to try to find a doctor now who does any hernia procedure without using mesh is not that easy because it's a much easier procedure for them to perform. But they're out there. So I think that's a cautionary tale. All right, Joe, thanks for hanging out for the extra half hour.
Yeah. Happy to do it.
I want to
Not too tired. Getting a little hangry.
Yeah, I'm hungry myself. I'm not hangry yet, but I'm hungry. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Joe's YouTube channel, Hair Transplant. It's youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. It's the Hair Transplant channel. I put that out there just in case I decide to embed the show on the Bald Truth or someplace else. I don't do that every week.
Well, thank you.
But I want people to know where to find Joe's channel. That's where we air this broadcast live. That may change. It may be aired live in several places eventually, but it's a lot of work.
It is.
So
Just getting ready for the broadcast, it takes an hour at least. Got to make the thumbnail, got to write the description, got to make sure the dates are right, got to schedule on YouTube, then copy paste some sort of copy on all the different websites. It's a pain in the ass. Just saying.
Yeah.
But
you hear that, Rob?
we're
If
trucking
you're
on.
listening, you hear how hard he works, Rob? And then you insult him?
He didn't actually insult me. He was just
No.
insulting. He was insulting you.
Yeah. Wow. I could take it. All right, guys. Listen, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Until next time, be strong. God bless. And thank you so much for hanging out. Take care.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid.